like obviously when we think about America, we think about like Canada, like the United States, Central America, South America. But when you Google America, it only comes up with the United States, which is what we thought was interesting, and
Yeah.
I guess kind of makes sense because we're like the United States of America,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it doesn't include everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Great point. Great point. What else? Welcome back, the rest of you who are just coming in. So what came up as you Googled, drew, etc.?
We were talking about how we always underestimate the size of Canada
Oh, nice.
and
Okay.
like
Yeah.
Alaska. And like we kind of think of the US as being really big, but then we saw it in relation to Canada and we're surprised.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And this is such a great point. It has to do with old map making techniques, right? I don't know if you did this in a geography class at some point, but the difficulty of translating a round object or set of objects onto a flat space, we get this real distortion that everything in the middle seems much bigger and everything toward the poles shrinks on the maps. But as you pointed out, right, not only Canada, but Brazil. Brazil is gigantic. It is at least the landmass of the United States, but we don't think about it that way. It looks like this smaller little thing down around the corner, around the edge of the globe. Yeah, good point. Good. What else came up?
I also realized that about Brazil. It just in my drawing,
Yeah.
for some reason, it was super distorted and much smaller than I thought. Than I realized it should be once I looked at it. So
yeah,
I guess something to think about.
Nice. Okay, Alex. So from what you're saying, I can understand that when you drew, do you want to flash your drawing up?
It's really bad.
No,
I really don't.
It's fine. And the reason I do this right away in the first part of the class, I'm going to ask you to do a lot of drawing and sketching throughout the class, and there is zero grading happening on the drawing. It's just that you did it. It doesn't matter, you don't have to be a skilled artist to do it. So great.
So should I show it? I can show it.
Show it.
What I can hear from what you're saying, Alex, is that you drew, yes, okay, good. You did all of the Americas in there. Fantastic. Good. That's sort of what I'm trying to figure out, how it comes up and what goes. Good. Anything else that came up as you did this? Okay, I'm going to transition back to the slides a second. Oops. Okay. So, as was mentioned, I think by Abby when he came in, is that if you Wikipedia America, you're going to get the northern United States of America. The weird thing is that there's more than one United States. There's the United States of Mexico. There are many other nations that have multiplicity in their name tied to America. But we in the Northern Hemisphere have taken it on as if it were just only our nation's name. And there's historical precedent for that. And at this point, it's very complicated to say, well, we are the Northern America. That gets really complicated because then you think, well, that could also include Canada. Why doesn't that include Mexico? Naming becomes really tricky. But it is a real object of contention for, or at least contemplation for many, many people throughout the hemisphere, right? We have America's running from north to south, and there's a lot that unifies us and a lot that is important to keep in mind as we think about our own history, ancestry, and otherwise. An artist named Alfredo Yar did this piece. He is Chilean. And he put this up in Times Square in New York. Now, Times Square looks quite different now than when he put this there. But the point was to try to say what? Why would you put this piece in Times Square? Stephen, did you have your hand up?
I did not, but
Okay.
because we kind of claimed America as our own name, and you just want to say it's like we're not actually just America, like we're just a portion of it.
Yep, absolutely. And for political reasons, right, it's very important to understand that the peoples, let's say, immigrating to the United States from other parts, they also consider themselves Americans, right? On two levels. One, part of the American continents, and two, they're joining into the culture. So Yar is trying to stir up some controversy and conversation around what it is to be American, from a Latinx point of view, from a Latin American point of view, and from a North American, the United States of America point of view. It's a very simple but provocative piece. Okay, so I'm not going to put you in breakout rooms for this, but if we're thinking about why in the world you would study the visual art and culture of Latin America, I'm hearing from many of you that you're seniors. I'm imagining you are not majoring in art history. So why this class out of all the other options you could take that would fill the requirement? What is it about Latin America that relates to us in North America, for example?
I think there are so many people from Latin America that live here and are, part of our country, and so it's very influential on everything we see.
Yep.
And so I think it's important to learn about it.
Yeah,
because that's a part of who we are too.
Yeah, excellent point. Good. What else? For those of you in business or economics or something along those lines, why study Latin America? Or even if you're not in those fields, you can answer the question. The main point is, right, 43% of all manufactured goods stay within or flow to Latin America. There was a huge push in the 20th century for the United States of America to become better, closer, both military powers and economic powers with the rest of the Americas, because they are our neighbors, right? Even in terms of, let's say, the past threat of communism in Cuba or elsewhere. The United States really made a point of, okay, we better befriend these groups, these countries, these powers. And in order to do that, we have to kind of romance them a little bit. We need to show that we know about them. They'll in turn take an interest in us. We can sell our goods to them. They'll join with us on military alliances. All these things just about being neighbors, right? That come up that make Latin America important. We also have this very ancient shared history of First Nations and First Peoples. This is a fuzzy map, apologies for the low resolution, that shows some of the very earliest human settlements found across the Americas. And they are of a similar time period, right? We have Huaca Prieta over 15,000 years ago, first human settlements. We have the Turkey Islands, the Channel Islands, all of these different spots where ancestors, First Nations, the first peoples of this continent, were already establishing themselves in small civilizations. So that's part of who we are. That's part of our background. Whether we, as ancestral families, immigrated to the continent or not. Okay, the other two big questions for the class, of course, are what is art and what is architecture? Off the cuff, what is art? Lila.
Art, like in general broad terms, is kind of just a way to visually and creatively express like a thought or feeling, any way to like get a message out there that you want to express in a creative way.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Other definitions of art or ideas about art? Yes, Nick.
anything that means something to you. I don't know. Anything that brings a different perspective or perception on something, I think sometimes could be considered as art.
Yeah, nice, good. So we have two good running definitions here. We have one that is sort of creative expression in some sort of visual form, not always visual, but mostly visual. And then we also have the idea that art is something that, you said it so nicely, but something that sort of shows you the world a little differently, right? It represents things to you in a different form or fashion. Good. Anything else? So when art can be protest, right? Sometimes art is just critique and opposition. Sometimes art is trying to push the cutting edge of visual language. Like, how far can we make painting go and still have it be painting? Sometimes it's that kind of experiment. There's so many different things that art is and can be, and we'll explore those through the semester. And I won't press you on architecture, but similarly there are so many different running definitions of that, right? That go from like technical engineering of spaces and dwelling to house people or functions, to these very artistic expressions of the ideas of the time. So we're going to look at the way that art and architecture tell us something about the different regions of Latin America, different time periods across Latin America, and the people, and not only the people, sometimes and often the non-human resources, from marble to cochineal insects, playing along in the making of art and architecture. Okay, and we'll do that by moving from the ancient Americas, where we're looking at the cultures of the Maya, the Toltec, the Olmec, the Mexica, the Aztec, up through some of this incredible Incan culture in Peru, where we're looking at stonework, as you see on the left, these monumental stones carved to fit perfectly in one another. We take a turn in the middle of the semester to look at the contact period, or what's often called the colonial period, right? Where Spain and other entities, primarily Spain across Latin America, came in to colonize the people who were already there, already functioning, already thriving in their cultures. We'll look at the way that script writing, as in the Mayan glyphs that you see here on the left, all the way to incredible calculations, mathematical and astronomical calculations, played into the making of some of the ancient pyramids, some of the oldest buildings across the Americas. You can see here this, do you see this sort of snake that shows up on the edge and ends in this snake head here at the bottom? When this pyramid was constructed, it was constructed so that on the equinox, that snake would appear. No other time was the sun in the right place, but on the equinox. Think about the calculation that takes to make that happen, you know, so long ago. Then we'll move into the contemporary period, where we look at the art of the Mexican Revolution, protest art, historical reconfiguration art, to projects like Torres Garcia's Inverted America, as part of his initiative to turn thinking around, to stop looking at Europe and to begin to look for Uruguay, for Uruguayans, at themselves as historical people with a rich culture. Then we'll move right up almost to the present day in the work of people like Frida Kahlo, Wilfredo Lam, and Ana Mendieta, who are really working with their bodies, their beliefs, their racial identity, their sexual identity, and trying to think that through in terms of where they are in the world, what it is they want to say to the culture of that time. I am imagining that by now, most of you have had a course, at least one course on Canvas. Will you just raise your hand if you have not used Canvas before? I'm not trying to call you out, but okay, good. So everything that you need to know is in the modules. I did a quick little intro video that should help you get started there. Please work through that getting started module if you haven't already. It's very technical, tedious, but it lets you know what we're doing and how it's going to roll out. So for this class, as you know, we have a sync day on Thursdays, and then we have an async day on Tuesdays. I'm going to move to Canvas just to show you how that looks quickly. Okay. Okay, so for example, for today's class over here where we are on Where is America? You have hopefully done the homework, which is this January 28th Art and Architecture from the Americas. There wasn't any homework for today, but generally you would look at that first. That first posting with the date is your homework. And then the next thing below it is going to be the class lecture. On Tuesdays, you're listening to a recorded lecture. On Thursdays, we're meeting together, discussing, talking, lecturing, etc. You don't need to watch the async lectures on the days we get together. So there will be a Thursday lecture posted, but that's for people who've gone into quarantine or who are sick or otherwise just need to catch up. It's also there for you at the end of each section when you need to study for the exam. Does that help clarify? So let's say for next week, you're going to do the async day on Chavin. So you're going to do this reading. Don't freak out. They're very short articles. And then watch a quick video. Some days I post articles, videos, and podcasts. I've done that so that those of you who learn better through different media have the option. So the podcasts are there if you learn better audibly. They are not required for everyone, though they're fabulous, and I do recommend you listen to them. But when you have those three options of video, reading, and podcast, the podcast becomes optional. Just to help you out. Okay, so here you do the homework for next week, and then you click through. Come on. To the next section on the module, and it's going to give you the lecture on Chavin. There it is. Any questions on that? Okay, good. So you've got 3 exams for the class. You have 3 formal analyses. We'll learn about what that is. It's just a very technical way of doing art history. And in short, it just means you look and look and look and look and look at something and then describe it in crazy detail. We will be working with the Museum of Anthropology on campus for several of those, where you will have a stretch of days where an exhibition has been put up just for our class with objects from the Maya, the Aztec, etc., that you'll go and look at. You choose one of those objects and do that careful looking and then write a 1 to 2 page paper. The details are all in Canvas, but if you have any questions about that, be sure to email me or we can set up a Zoom office hours meeting. The other thing you have for the class is a final project, and that final project, I recommend that you do it in groups. You can decide to go solo if you'd like. For that final project, the sky is the limit in terms of what type of thing you want to do. In the past, I had someone make a Jeopardy game of the cultures, art and architecture of Latin America, which was fantastic. You could decide to do a group dinner where you cook something directly related to one of the cultures and integrate into your dinner a discussion of the art and architecture that relates to those people. You're just trying to come up with something that will be either pedagogical, that someone could watch and be like, oh, now I know more about X, Y, and Z, or that is museological, where you're really digging into an object, telling us about it as if you were setting it up for a museum exhibition. You'll learn more about that final project as you go, but just as you're moving through the class, start thinking about things that click for you that you might want to work on. Anything else? Exams, participation grade. Okay, so for your days synchronously, your participation grade comes from each time you raise your hand to discuss and be part of what we're doing. On the async days, that discussion comes from the discussion boards, and I hate them. I know you hate them. If it wasn't for COVID, we wouldn't do it. But it's the best way that I can tell, okay, student X is understanding where we are, student Y, maybe I need to do a little one-on-one with them. It just lets me know where you are in the class. And the way that works, this one trips people up. So I know this sounds a little tedious, but here it is. When you're watching a recorded lecture, just as I did today, I'm going to be like, okay, what do you think when you see this? What comes up for you when you look at this image? They're very informal times where I ask the people on the other side of the screen to respond to something we're looking at. Pick 3 of those. I'm going to do it 45 times in every lecture. So just pick 3 that you think, oh, I'd like to answer that one, and respond to any 3 that you'd like. You can also respond to other students' posts if you want, but the main point is that I know, okay, this clicked for them, this worked as you go through the class. There's no wrong answer on what you're going to respond to as long as it's focused on art, culture, architecture. All right. Okay, that's all I've got. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, welcome to the class. I look forward to moving through the semester with you and hope you have a good weekend. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks.